We would like to thank LSR for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast. LSR produces Southern Cane Pure Cane Sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets. And we are kicking off episode number 5 on the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm your host, Jason Duhe. Joining me will be Hall of Fame head coach Frank Monica. We got a great episode for you tonight as we're going to talk the same thing we always do. Prep football, previews, and recaps. LSU, Tulane, Saints football. We're going to be joined by special guest, Edie White head football coach Kyle Lasseigne. And in the Let's Be Frank segment, we're going to talk about, is football too dangerous for kids, the pick play in football, and talk some Heisman candidates. So, Coach, as we roll into the next week of high school football, we got a big slate of games that we're going to talk about. And you know, some teams, maybe it seems a little bit uncharacteristically off their game. What do you think it is this season in particular about some of the teams that we're maybe seeing uncharacteristic performances of? Could it be part of this new turn in scheduling where I find every 2 years, as you know, you have these schedules kind of flip, and depending on the perception of your program, as we've talked about, it's going to depend on the type of teams that you schedule. And how much has that kind of played into some of these teams and the way that their seasons are playing out?
Oh, it has tremendous impact. The power ranking system has caused a lot of that. And a lot of people, even though that they have a power, they don't want to lose ball games, so they schedule easier schedule. But in some cases, these people that schedule one another are all tough opponents, because the tougher the team, the harder it is for you to find teams that will play you. So what ends up happening, the better schools are playing the better schools, because they also realize that the flip side of that is that if they come into a weak district, they have to find some competition somewhere, because nobody likes those 6-0 games and running time in the second half. Nobody likes those kind of games. So I think what you're seeing now is that there's a big disparity about the people that play. Good people, you can tell the difference in football, and the quality of football is there. It makes you accelerate your program. It makes the kids compete every week. And there are only maybe 1 or 2 real thorough districts in this entire state. A lot of them are really have watered down districts.
All right, Coach, let's go and take a look at some of these recaps from week number 4 as we move on to prep talk. In our first game, we had Destrehan defeating East St. John 39-16. We mentioned that might be a close one because we've seen East St. John kind of give Destrehan fits in the past, but Destrehan improved to 2-2 on the year, and they seem to be well on their way to kind of riding the track, because they do have a big test this upcoming week. And
Destrehan played without 2 their superstars, so I think it was probably evident that Destrehan was a lot better football team than East St. John. East St. John wasn't really in the ball game at all. They scored late to just make it look comfortable, but Destrehan was in control the whole night.
In our next matchup, we had Hahnville taking on Terrebonne. Hahnville came out with a 51-32 victor in the battle of the new coaches. And Hahnville, of course, maybe has that Destrehan game kind of circled on their calendar for later on in the season, but taking care of business some of these earlier district games. And in that district, when you have some of these rivalry games, you can't overlook any opponent, and they didn't this past week.
Coach Bourne, we had him on last week, and he was concerned about, his upcoming schedule. He was concerned about Terrebonne. Vastly improved team, a team that probably will battle for, the district championship when it's all said and done. So beware of them, because for what we understand, haven't seen them live, but they have some real playmakers on the offensive side of the ball.
In our next game, we had Jesuit defeating Brother Martin 17-5 in a bit of an odd score there. But Jesuit, under Coach Manali, we mentioned last year, they really had a rough go. Brother Martin's kind of been humming offensively and defensively up to this point. But really a big statement win for Jesuit to kind of make their presence felt in the Catholic League early on in district play.
Yeah, they had a kid by the name of Norton that had a 97-yard touchdown pass. I mean, that's the longest in history of Jesuit. And I was there for 5 years. I know we didn't have anything close to that, but that was pretty amazing. 97-yard touchdown pass, and the quarterback Duhe from Brother Martin, who's normally an excellent quarterback, couldn't get going in that ball game, and there were a couple open receivers there that he didn't hit, but that's a big win for Jesuit, because Brother Martin was 3-0 going to that ball game.
Carr defeated Holy Cross 45-20. What's important to note is Holy Cross jumped out to a 20-0 lead early in that game. But, Coach, as we've discussed over and over, we know the type of depth and ability that Carr has. It felt like there was a very fragile balance in that game when Holy Cross had the lead. And it felt like everything went wrong for Carr early, and they went on to score 45 unanswered points, including 2 special teams touchdowns. And they're a very talented football team. It's going to be tough for any team in the state to beat them.
Well, if they have a weakness, it must be in the band, because they're certainly not on the field, because they had 6 different players that scored touchdowns in that ball game. And the only thing that Holy Cross really took advantage of was some mistakes, a couple scooping scores for touchdowns to get that big lead. But then all of a sudden, I think Carr woke up. But just goes to show you, like what happened in the Jesuit Brother Martin, the Catholic League, each week it's a battle, and it's a flip of the coin who's going to come out ahead.
Coach, I was leaving that game, and there was 9 buses picking up the band as they were blaring music behind me. There was no weaknesses there, I promise you that. So I don't know. We might need to look for the turf on the field maybe. That's a really good football team and band to head on. But Rummel defeated John Curtis 14-7. Rummel, we've mentioned coming into the season, really was a young football team that continued to grow, made a late run, and they've continued to capitalize on what they built in the previous season with their depth. And again, Curtis will be Curtis, right? They're going to be a physical team that plays hard-nosed football. And for Rummel to come out with this win, again, speaks to the type of football team they've had, especially with the slate of games they played early on the season as well.
Yeah, this is it's a backyard rivalry. 2 Jefferson Parish schools, and Coach Curtis, Coach Monica, know one another quite well. They've met several times and during the regular season. So you knew it was going to be a battle in the trench, and it was. Curtis had 2 turnovers that really hurt them. And then on the flip side of it, I think the Rummel controlled the last 5 minutes of the ball game on the ground. Their tailback, Norman Taylor, is an excellent back. It's hard to knock down. I think the turning point in the ball game is that Rummel did not turn the ball over. And I think that's one of the keys to winning. If sloppy tackling will get you beat, turnovers will get you beat. And Rummel didn't do that, but it was a great game. It was a great physical game. And this John Curtis team will be a team to contend with. They're still real good. Have a very fast quarterback. So, like I said before, next week is another week for these district opponents.
No doubt. As we move on to Shaw, who defeated Lafayette Christian, this one kind of makes you raise the eyebrows, Coach. 31-8, and we've discussed how talented Shaw is and how, for obvious reasons, that program probably feels like this could be their opportunity at a big run. I'm sure Coach Hank Tierney feels that way as well. This is a very talented LCA ball club, a very athletic offense as well. And for them to play the way that they did speaks volumes about the Shaw Ball Club.
It sounds like Lafayette Christian doesn't stop the run very well, because the Rummel first game of the year really ran the ball well on him. Parker for Shaw had 326 yards. 326 yards for running back. I mean, that's incredible against them. But the fact that the score was lopsided is really a shocker to everybody. I don't know what happened to the quarterback for Lafayette Christian, because I know he can score 20 points himself. But give credit to Shaw, because they bounced back and got a big win on the road. That's really crucial.
Coach De La Salle defeated St. Charles Catholic 10-0 in that game. We've kind of discussed about St. Charles having some struggles offensively and trying to find their way, weren't able to do so. But we know De La Salle has a very strong defense, once again proving that by blanking the Comets this past week.
Yeah, St. Charles threw a pick 6 in that ball game and got them behind a little bit, and they never did catch up. And then De La Salle added a field goal late. Coach Stein's defense played extremely well the entire ball game. They didn't give up much. There was a couple big plays called back because the roughing passer penalty. They got the ball inside the 5-yard line, and that was called back. And there was also a big run play. Just the 2 receivers lined up in the backfield. That called back another big run play for St. Charles, a touchdown, in fact. So once you eliminate the young football team, once they eliminate those mistakes, they'll be fine. But it was another tough loss for them, and Coach Graham does a nice job at De La Salle. It's not a shock that they played really hard, because they also played a real rugged schedule before going into the St. Charles game. So, but you look for them. Both teams will bounce back and make a run at the end.
Right. I think both teams kind of have
a decently, I'm saying manageable. I know St. Charles has a few tough ones as well, but both teams, it's almost like their district schedule is going to be easier than what they played up to this point. So we'll see how both teams finish out their season. In our last recap, we had St. Aug defeating Warren Easton 42-19. The turnaround that we've seen from the St. Aug team, Coach, I would say, we talked to Coach Valdez earlier this season, is not surprising because we know the type of coach that Coach Valdez is, but to beat Warren Easton by that margin really speaks to how this team is buying in to what he is selling to his program. And it's going to be interesting to see along the way how this team competes in the Catholic League.
Well, I think they will be there at the end. I mean, they'll be one of the teams to beat. I mean, they have a lot of good players. They always have great players, and Coach Valdez knows what to do with them. That quarterback Coulon threw for 4 touchdown passes, and they seem to have they always have speed at that school. So if they can protect, there'll be a team and play some defense. It'll be one of the teams. It'll be a fun game to watch, when they get into the meat of this district, So it's going to be fun. But again, every week you got to line up and say, okay, you just got to play. Don't even look at the jerseys across the line from you. You just have to line up and play hard every week. And that's not easy to do because, as I said before, I think a team has so many emotional highs in the season. But yet that's why you try to get your kids to play on the even keel.
Coach, speaking of watching St. Aug play the heart of their schedule, and as we move on to Week 5 previews, they take on Carr this week. And talk about a game of two teams that have a ton of Division I athletes on both sides of the ball. What are you looking for in this matchup?
Oh, speed. I mean, it's going to be unbelievable. It's going to be like a high-paced tennis match because both teams will have to shut down the other team. You can see some deep pass routes. You can see some big crossing routes. You can see some athleticism in the kicking game. I mean, it's going to be amazing just to watch this. And you're right. I mean, combined with both those teams, the D1 guys, with the junior class and senior class, you might be looking at 10, 15 guys on that field at one time.
And I got to watch Carl last week, and we've kind of looked at St. Aug already. The amount of defensive talent that's going to be on the field for both sides in this game is unbelievable. 2 really strong defensive fronts. I'm really excited to see how that one plays out. In our next game, we got St. Paul's who takes on Duhe. Duhe has played a brutal schedule. St. Paul hasn't shied away from a challenge either. Duhe did take on Catholic of Baton Rouge and took them down a peg just a few short weeks ago. And I think this is another big test for a Duhe ball club that has really not shied away from playing in these big matchups. It'll be an interesting one to watch.
No, you said it earlier, talked about the schedule. This is the classic case. Coach Martin from Duhe has done a great job of making a real rugged schedule to test his team. I think that says a lot about his program and about a coach that just wants to get better. And so, when he gets in the playoffs or if he makes to the Superdome, he can look back and say, guys, look at who we played. Look at who we played to get here. So his kids should not be intimidated by anyone. St. Paul's, though, is very, very good opponent, as you said. Very good quarterback. They play a great schedule also. They've been battle tested, so look for this to be a rugged game. And it's really fun to see 2 matchups like that because Duhe now is the number 1 in the polls in their class, and rightly so.
Both teams come into that game 3-1. As we move on to our next match up, we have Destrehan going to Terrebonne. Destrehan 2-2, which is a bit odd for us to be talking about. We know Terrebonne is one of the bigger tests left on the Wildcat schedule. And we've discussed how Terrebonne could be that sneaky team in the district that could make a play at Destrehan's, really be the biggest roadblock or one of the biggest roadblocks that Destrehan has. How are you looking to see this one match up?
Well, as we said earlier, I think that this might be the district championship right here and not cast dispersions on anybody else in the district. That might be upset down the road because Destrehan and Hornville, that's always a big rivalry. But right now, it looks like Terrebonne probably has the body of work to actually compete with Destrehan and maybe give them a good game, especially if Destrehan is not full speed.
We also have Rummel, who's 4-0, traveling to Brother Martin at 3-1. We know Brother Martin took their first loss of the season just a week ago against Jesuit, looking to right the ship after only putting up 5 points on the board just a week ago. Rummel not really, blowing out the scoreboard by any means, but really leaning on a strong defensive effort and the emergence of some of those younger guys and experience that they've grown?
Well, they've been playing complementary football. They're playing one another, and they're taking care of the football. That's crucial. Brother Martin, those wounded. And, this is always a tight ball game. Coach Bonice is always going to have his guys in position. And you can see them actually laying in the gap. And for Rummel coming off a big win, this could be a game that they're going to have to watch themselves because, Brother Martin will be hungry. What's unique in this game, they're playing it at Yenny and not Gormley. And Brother Martin is the home team. And that's normally the Rummel's home field. But Brother Martin will be the home team in this ball game.
Coach, when we talk about New Orleans teams, it doesn't really matter who's the home team or not. It seems like they kind of rotate those same few stadiums. But taking a look at our next game, we got Holy Cross, who takes on Jesuit. I mentioned earlier, Holy Cross really made some big plays, took advantage of mistakes. But again, they have some mistakes that they need to kind of clean up if they're going to take on this Jesuit ball club and come out with a win. Jesuits played a tough both teams have obviously played a tough non-district slate, but Jesuits coming out of it 3-1 thus far. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Holy Cross can come out with a win and what's the longest running matchup between teams in Louisiana history.
Exactly right. I mean, Jesuit is a team that's playing real well right now, and a team that really, at the beginning of the year, did get a lot of press, and the people said, well, they were just going to be average, but they've proven that they could win some ball games with that big win last week. Holy Cross had a chance against Carr. After you play a team like Carr, you probably say, I'm glad we got that one over with. Now we can relax and play the rest of the league. But yet the Catholic League doesn't allow you to do that because the next week there's another monster out there ready to rip your head off. So I think it's good. This could be a fun game also. You will see a lot of close ball games, and some of them, if you pick an over-under score, will probably, a lot of these schools will probably be under, because they're just battle weary. A lot of these teams, after struggling every week, it'll be hard to get your legs back every week and get your emotions back.
You mentioned that before. It's hard to be up for every game emotionally. In our next game, we got Riverdale taking on Newman. Newman coming in 2-0 after a few things kind of changed their slate of games. Coach, this might be one of the bigger tests left on their schedule. And we know that Newman has really come out with a strong opening to their season. And it'll be interesting to see if they can continue along that path that they've already begun to kind of trend.
I think Riverdale has a few people that maybe can scare them, but I don't think they can beat Newman. Could be all wet. This might be the only test that Newman has left on his schedule because the district is not real competitive that they're in. So I think Coach Stewart is going to have to really look at this ball game as a must-win for him because the rest of the way, I think he's okay with that. And but you don't like to play those easy games way down, because once you start relaxing, your team starts relaxing, they're not prepared to go in the playoffs and play a tough opponent.
And our next game, we have St. Martin's taking on Pope John Paul. This is a battle of two undefeated ball clubs. Of course, everybody knows St. Martin's has, all-American running back Harlan Barry and the things that he's kind of been touted for. I think it'll be interesting to see if there is a team that can kind of pose a threat to St. Martin's on their schedules we talked about. Pope John Paul has kind of changed the complexion of their program over the past year and a half or so. This should be a fun matchup.
Well, it'd be fun to the early hype about Pope John Paul, that how much the program has improved over the years, which we're glad to see. I mean, you want to see everybody be real competitive and the kids compete, because one of the things as a college recruiter used to go to some of these schools, and I would see maybe 20, 25 kids out there walking through practice, and it wasn't, you could tell they weren't having fun. And it's all about the structure. It's all about the culture, that somebody wasn't doing something right. And so you hate to blame it on various things, but it could be like that. Maybe they just don't have the talent. Not going to understand that. But even if you don't, you can at least put your kids in position. It looked like that's what Pope John Paul's doing. Don't forget that St. Martin's got that big one, though, with Riverside. And that's going to be probably a rematch of a playoff game of a couple years last year, really. And maybe even a prelude of what we might see in the Superdome.
In our next game, we got Vanderbilt Catholic taking on Lutcher, another battle of two undefeated teams. Vanderbilt Catholic has a really talented back. Coleman, again, I've been watching this young man since he's a freshman. He's a game breaker, but Lutcher is a a very experienced ball club, and they've proven and kind of leaned on that talent to their 3-0 start. I think it'll be interesting to see what Coach Jenkins' team can do in a home game against a quality Vanderbilt Catholic ball club.
Vanderbilt would be real big in the trenches, but Lutcher's defense is really good. Look for this to be a slobber knocker, as they say. It's going to be a low-scoring ball game, and probably a game that will go all the way there down to the fourth quarter. And to be like an NFL game, an NFL game, you don't have to watch it until the last 2 minutes because that's where all the action takes place.
In our next game, we got Vermilion Catholic in a rematch against Riverside after a year ago playing in a late playoff game. And I love seeing this type of game because it really is a preview of what we talked about, matchups you could potentially see in the Superdome. This is definitely one that we could possibly see as Riverside got the better of them a year ago. We'll see how much revenge is on Vermilion Catholic's mind and if it even matters or plays a role in the game.
On the high school level, in the Class A level, Jason, this is kind of put it in parity with the Alabama-Georgia game, a phenomenal game that everybody enjoyed watching. Could have a lot of if only this happened, if only this, whatever, had a ton of those. And it could come down to that. VC's always been a powerful football team. Riverside's got speed and great skilled kids. So it could be very interesting. As you said before, we could see this rematch again in December.
Wouldn't shock me one bit. As we move on to the next game, Warren Eastern taking on John Curtis. Warren Eastern weren't able to defeat St. Aug. We know Curtis is kind of trying to find their footing and turn things around in the season. Curtis is going to come out and win a ton of football games. It's a matter of when. Could this be the week that we kind of see them turn the corner and kind of find themselves offensively?
Years ago, you never wanted to play Alabama after Bear Bryant lost. And you never want to play them the next week because all of a sudden they would take it out on you. Well, this is one of those games I think that Curtis is looking for to get themselves back on track. And they made some mistakes last week. And if they clean that up, they still would be a very talented defense and got an electric quarterback. So look for this game to be. And also Warren Eastern is looking at the same faith. They actually have the same particular characteristics that Curtis had. Made a couple mistakes, and maybe they have an opportunity to try to make amends here and then get a W.
And Coach, after Warren Eastern having forfeited a large majority of last season, this really feels like it could be their opportunity to try to make a statement. I think it could be an interesting game to watch. St. James is going to take on St. Charles Catholic. The Comets still trying to find their first win of the season, and this is going to be a tough one to try to find that first win against.
No question that Coach Stein knows that. He's a little concerned about his team looking right now, but I don't think anything is broken. You just have to play a little bit better and just have to clean up a few things. And but now, again, you like to say, well, where's that patch on my schedule where I can get well again and get a W and the whole deal. But St. James is not that type of team. They're really, really good, really fast, have a big offensive line, have a freshman quarterback, about 6'4" kid. They're playing with a lot of confidence. Went on the road last week and defeated Ponchatoula easily. And so they're coming to Comet Country. And so this should be a fun game also. And I really look for St. Charles to really rebound and play better than they've done the last couple of weeks. But the defense has been really good. The special team has been really good. I just think they have to clean up a couple mistakes offensively.
Coach, when you look at the way St. Charles, we know the job that Coach Stein has done, and again, following in your footsteps and really keeping that program on the right track. I think a lot of people kind of look at St. Charles and say 3-0 and are kind of surprised. I would say I definitely understand the surprise, but I think that's a testament to the way the program has been built over the past few years. But I think this also kind of exemplifies, even if you're a really good program, atop of the high school football world in Louisiana, there's no given W's on your schedule. And it seems like the schedules that St. Charles in particular has played over the past couple of years have been brutal, but they've come up on the right end of some really tight games. And it really kind of makes it look like, well, they kind of breeze through their schedule, but really have had to fight hard to get these wins. And can you speak to how difficult it is to win week in and week out in high school football when you are a smaller school and you are playing bigger programs, physical programs that have more numbers than you?
Well, it's true in every level, even in the college and NFL. Winning is important. I mean, when you win a ball game, don't just take that for granted. And in a program like St. Charles, that was just a given. The people that don't go to the ball game say, "What do you mean St. Charles lost?" They don't understand. That they didn't see the game, but they said, "What do you mean they lost it?" They have no idea of the level of competition that they're playing and what they're playing with, and because each year is different. You got graduation rates, you got injuries, you got a lot of things that impact the program. And so when you win a ball game, you cherish that win. There's no such thing as a minor win. They're all big and they're all important. So, and it's not that easy. So it just goes to show you that St. Charles is human. And that's what people need to understand, that they're human. But the nature of their schedule and the little mistakes that they're making, but it's not over. I mean, because I remember years ago, Lutcher High School went 0-5 and ended up winning the state championship. Now it's the state championship. So those things can happen. I mean, especially now with the select, non-select, and the playoff system, the way it works out, and the power ranking thing, those things can easily happen again.
And Coach, I think it's important to note as well that teams are allowed to improve and get better over the course of the season, especially when you're trying to redevelop depth and evaluate where to put your pieces. So I definitely don't expect this to be the last we'll be talking about St. Charles over the course of the season. And again, it'll be interesting to see if they can get their first win against St. James. But again, we will see this team grow over the course of the season, no doubt about it. As we go ahead and turn the page and look at some local college football talk, LSU defeated South Alabama 42-10. This game out the gate, Coach, we mentioned we felt like it could be a tighter test than UCLA, but LSU kind of let it be known that was a false narrative out the gate, scoring on their first play. Durham played a fantastic ball game despite getting pulled out of the game due to an injury. Nuss made a few risky passes, but I think you'd probably agree, if you're going to see those risky passes, those dangerous plays, this is probably the game you'd want to see them happen in. He's
right.
Still a first-year quarterback, make those mistakes in a game where you're up 35 points. But, again, they handled business, and they go into a bye week where they're going to be laying in wait for an Ole Miss team that came off a loss against Kentucky.
Yeah, South Alabama really surprised me. I thought they'd give more of a fight. I thought their offense would be better than what they were. Now they talked about what LSU's done. They made some adjustments with their defense without Perkins. I don't think that mattered. They just looked completely out of sync all night long. And I really think they were intimidated. I mean, LSU came out, scored on first play, and should have scored on the second play too. They should have given that kid a touchdown on that play also. And I really like Nussmeier, quarterback. I like the way, look, he throws side on him. He throws off balance a lot, sometimes off his back foot. That drives coaches crazy when that happens. But see, as a quarterback, when that receiver pops up for that split second, he didn't have time to look pretty and form throw. He has to make that delivery right now, and he's excellent at that. And I think he's really a guy that can lead that offense to great things. But unfortunately, we don't know what's good. The defense is still a question mark, and we'll find out in a couple of weeks.
Coach, there's some passes in that ball game he put on the money in some very tight spaces. Really was impressed with his performance in the game. But I will say the punting was very similar to what we talked about on the show a week ago. Lack of punting could come up to bite this team later on in the season. But as we turn the page, Tulane with a big win over South Florida, 45-10. And again, a game at home. That's a solid win for them before they head on the road and take on UAB in a difficult venue.
No, South Florida, I don't know if they had the effects of the hurricane or they're leaving early or whatever it was, but boy, they didn't get off the bus at all. And Tulane was really jacked up for this ball game. It looked like a scrimmage. I mean, it's almost like a scripted play, something like you do in a video game. They just went right down the field. And Hughes had a great day. And he's a great back because he runs low, falls forward, and has great vision. But the quarterback, Mensah, did a great job, too, hitting some wide open receivers. And I mean, it was just a great outing for him. The score was 45-10. And, credit to Coach for what he did. Coach Summerall at the end of the ball game, got the ball on the 2-yard line. He took the knee twice. He could have easily scored again. And but that was a class act, I thought, because in football, if you win about 45, if you win 45-10 or whatever, they go 55. What's the difference? You know what I mean? So give them credit. They played extremely well. They played a lot of guys. Their depth is really, really superb on defense. They're getting, but I think they were a little embarrassed about their showing at ULL the week before, even though they got a win. But look, they go to UAB. Let's see how they play on the road this week.
Coach, how much do you think that game against ULL kind of fed into that? Because you mentioned a week ago they didn't play the sharpest game of football when your team kind of struggled. How would you kind of use that to motivate your ball clubs into saying, this is what, even after a win, this is what happens when we come out flat? How do you kind of approach that week leading up to another big test?
Well, it's funny because that was the third 11 o'clock game that they had, the third one in the morning. And, college guys are just not used to that. I mean, even though Tulane practices in the morning for most count because of their class load, but they're just not used to that, especially on a sunny day when it's really hot and stuff like that. And they're playing ULL. No matter what, they probably say, well, who's ULL? And Coach Summerall knows that because he was at Troy. He was in the Sun Belt Conference himself. But I really think Tulane is a pretty good football team. And now if they really have to watch themselves that they don't get complacent, complacency is the enemy. And they got to be very careful because right now with South Florida out of the way, they got maybe Memphis and Navy stated. Everybody else, they should be favored, but that doesn't mean anything. That's just for sports fans and bookies and stuff like that. So, but I think they're an excellent football team, and when they play, I think they're as good as anybody.
All right, Coach, we're going to go ahead and move on to Saints football as Coach, for all the goodwill the Saints earned in the first 2 weeks of the season, they've kind of backslid after they drop a 26-24 ball game against the Falcons. I'm sure a lot of Houdat fans are not thrilled with that final result, but you do have to look at the situation that you're in the reality of who's out there on the field. There was a ton of injuries. They were decimated with injuries littered throughout both sides of the ball. But then you have to go around and turn around and play the Chiefs on the road, and that's going to be a tough one too.
See, I don't think the injuries really impacted that game at all on the Saints side. They played extremely well. Their defense didn't allow a touchdown. In the NFL nowadays, that's tremendous. They just a field goal. What Shaheed was doing, fielding that punt inside the 5-yard line, nobody knows. The rule of thumb was you put your heels on the 10. If the ball's over your head, let it go. If it bounces up, but let it go. And he was inside the 5-yard line, and then he was backing up, and that really hurt. Now you see, if it's a muff in high school, for instance, the rule is different. If it's a muff, it cannot be recovered as a touchdown. You get the ball there, but you cannot be recovered as a touchdown. But and also later on in the ball game, they had I thought an interference call against Abito. I think the ball had already hit the receiver. I was wishing the commentator would go back on that again and show that play over again from a different angle, because they didn't give it much attention. They just said, well, Beater shouldn't have done that. Well, that's bull. I don't know what the defensive backs can do nowadays. The receivers are allowed to extend their arms, but the defensive back, he gets called for any little thing in a little touchy-feely situation. But I thought that what Carr did on the ball was batted in the air, and I can understand he was trying to look like he was trying to throw a screen and try to side on the ball underneath. The ball was batted in the air. That happened. But the thing that really got me at the end of the game, the Saints had just taken the lead. They kicked off the ball. It was 1 minute left exactly on the clock. And they all had to do was get a field goal. But they kicked off the ball and they went in the end zone. My question is, why didn't they kick the ball inside to the 20, make them return it? Because the rule is in the NFL, if the ball is inside the 20, they have to return it. And make them return it, that would run some clock off. But once you kick it in the end zone, that gives you the ball on the 30-yard line. It gives the ball on the 30-yard. That makes it a 70-yard field. In the NFL with that kicker, all he needed to do was get 2 first downs, and he's there. And unfortunately, they didn't even get a first down on it. They just got the interference on it. So they played extremely well. They could have easily won that ball game and the Eagles ball game. They could easily be with a couple plays be 4-0 right now. And I really feel bad for that coaching staff because I know they're working really hard to get there. And Kamara played great, and but you can't look at NFL's injuries. Everybody's got those, so you can't use that as an excuse.
Yeah, Coach. Every time, how it is. Every time it benefits your team, you're not so concerned about it. But of course, with that interference penalty, people kind of came out the woodwork and questioned: is it right that it's a spot foul? In a college game, it's a 15-yard penalty. Can I get your quick take on that before we head to break? Do you believe that it should be a spot foul or a 15-yard penalty, or are you okay with it being as it is in the college versus the NFL game, or do you think one should adapt the other's rule?
No, I think there's circumstances. I understand that because if a guy gets beat and he knows there's only 15 yards, and a guy gets beat, well, I'm going to hold this guy, and then just get the 15-yard penalty. But what the NFL is trying to say, well, you're going to pay for that mistake. But you're right. I do get what you're saying, and I agree to a certain point. Do I feel strongly both ways? I really like to see it be a 15-yard penalty or even extended to 20, but to give them the ball back, because now you're seeing more and more deep balls. And because the defensive back has his back to the quarterback. So it's very, very easy for him to – and the underthrown balls are where you see more interference. Where the underball, where his receiver trying to come back to the ball, but the guy's in his way. Well, that's not the guy's fault. That is one that I think that should not be called when the ball is underthrown. And then you got the back view shoulder throw that gets involved in that too. So that needs to be discussed, and I agree with you. That's a hard penalty because that could be a 40, 50-yard penalty.
Yeah, it's tough to see that, as you mentioned, teams late in the game situations say, well, we're just going to go ahead and take a shot and see if we can come up with a penalty. Again, I do feel strongly about what you mentioned, though, that if we're just going to see people belaying the other team and knocking them over and grabbing them if we do bring it to 15 yards. But, again, I don't think there's a perfect response. I don't think there is a perfect answer or solution.
But, the other thing with video instant replay, I mean, it didn't help out Virginia Tech. I mean, what happened there was something that was really, really weird. Now, Miami benefited from it, but really, I question if that happens on the road. That happened at home for Virginia Tech. Which way does the call go? I really question that.
Coach, what about and again, we're kind of going off topic here, but there was at one point one of those football leagues had the sky ref, where there was a camera in the sky that could technically call any penalty on the field. What are your feelings on that? With the amount of technology that we have, the ability to get a call right or have an official be able to get the best view possible from the sky, do you think that would be a welcome addition or a beneficial addition to the college and or NFL game?
Well, the laser beam, it was in the Senior Bowl at one time was tried out, and I don't know why they did. They did it on the goal line. Well, why can't you do the exact same thing for the back of the end zone? And it worked. I mean, you can see it takes the ball into account. I mean, without technology today, there should not ever be a bad call. What I really see a lot of bad calls are spots. Now, it was his knee down, was his elbow down. The spots themselves, I mean, that's something that there was a game the other day that, I mean, the guy was a whole yard off, and the coach didn't even challenge it. So I don't know what's going on in the press box or the whole deal, but I see spots as being a big, big point of controversy also.
All right, Coach, we're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will have special guests, Edie White, head football coach Kyle Lasseigne. Don't touch that dial. Remember, you're watching on Varsity Sports Now.
We would like to thank the Accardo Law Firm for being a supporter of the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern cane, pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
Welcome back to the Let's Be Frank video podcast. Tonight, our special guest is the head coach of the E.D. White football team. I want to welcome our special guest, Kyle Lasseigne. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And this is obviously your second stint with the Cardinals. What's it been like to transition back into this role? I know you've been there for a minute, but what's it been like to transition back into this role at E.D. White, especially the juggernaut that he's really made this program and kind of churned them out year after year?
Well, it's really been night and day, to be honest with you. You know, the first go around for 11 years doing it, and then getting out for 5. My kids were in school. Was able to see my daughter play some volleyball, and then getting back into it. You know, I learned a lot the first tenure, what I should and shouldn't do. Learned to trust my staff a lot more this second go around, and just blessed to have a great staff now that I can count on, and I can really do a lot of the head coaching things now. So it's really been night and day. I'll be very honest. My first stint, I tried to do way too much. I tried to have a hand in everything, and then once I made the decision to come back, it was going to be different. I was lucky to keep Chris Bergeron as my defensive coordinator. And then Grant Chasson came on as the offensive coordinator, and Grant played for me back in 2009, 2010. So it was kind of a homecoming of sorts, a lot of familiar faces, and made it a lot more comfortable coming back the second time.
That was a great answer, Coach. A great answer. Coach, I want you to notice I wore this for you, for your color tonight. You know what I mean?
I see that.
Coach, you've done a great job there. Not only that, people don't realize that the many hats that you have worn. I mean, you know, you're AD now, but you're also a classroom teacher for a number of years, weren't you?
I was. I taught physics for a long time. In fact, my first tenure, I was the physics teacher. And then about 3 years ago, I got the AD job at E.D. White. So I was able to leave the classroom and then focus on just being the AD and the head coach. You know, looking back now, Coach, this is 29 years for me. I started over at Assumption in 1995, spent 5 years there.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, under Coach Don Torres, who I really consider my mentor. You know, he did a lot of things right, taught me the way to coach some ball. So I was really fortunate to be with him, and I'm lucky to call him a friend today. So those 5 years were kind of molding years, and then been at E.D. White for 24. So, you know, it's been a long ride. Seen a lot of things change over the years.
Oh, Coach, you're setting a great legacy right now. I mean, you not only your program, but the school is a great school academically, athletically. Yeah. You guys are always there in Division II. I saw locally that you're number 3 team in select power ranking right now, right. And you've really turned that program around a lot. I have great respect for your staff. You mentioned Coach Bergeron. That I've talked to him on previous occasions when he was a defense coordinator and then the head coach. But you've done a great job there. And I don't know how many physics teachers are head football coaches either. I mean,
not many. Not many I know of.
No, that's a red pi or square, whatever it is. They don't know what that is. but Coach, I know you guys are over there, your football program, Coach, have always, it looks like you play great complementary football. Your offense plays to your defense. You always have real physical linemen in terms of that, and talk about your special teams, your offense and defense, and your 2 coordinators have done a great job also.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it really is. It's been real complimentary football, to be honest with you. We've played great defense. You know, we always start on that side of the ball. We try to get some athletes that really can make plays, and that's really where we start. We try to get some of our best kids in the secondary because, you know, the game has changed, and it's not run the ball 3 times and punt. It's, throw it all over the park. So we really changed on that side of the football, and I think we do a really good job of rallying to the ball. We run probably better than at any point in my career there at E.D. White. So that helps us defensively to kind of match up with what we see, especially when we get into our playoffs. Offensively, I like what we do. We're based in a triple option, but we do a lot of other things. We do some wing tee things. We do some pistol things. I don't know what it is to prepare for us defensively from week to week, but it's got to be a headache because there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of formations. But you're right. We try to be physical. We really do. We tried to set that tone right when I came back 6 years ago, and say this is what we're going to do, because in the world of 7-on-7 football now, you can really gain an advantage if you're going to be physical, and that's really where we wanted to start. But I also got to mention special teams. It's a third part of the game that a lot of people just ignore. They don't put a lot of time into it, but special teams for us over the last 5 years has really created some advantages for us. It's put us in great field position. It's pinned people back. Our kicking game is really good. I got a kid that's going to go play at Marshall. And that part of the game, when you can feel comfortable that, you're going to kick it in the end zone, they're going to have to start on the 20, so they're going to have to drive the field. And if you can get a 3 and out and they don't have a great punting game, then you're going to get the ball around midfield. And that's really what we want. And fortunately, that's what we've seen over the last few years. So it's really been complimentary. We've been solid defensively. We made strides offensively and diversified what we did. Probably averaged about 45 points last year. And then special teams has always been something that, if I'm going to dip into anything as the head coach, it's going to be special teams, because we're going to be really good in that.
Coach, well said. Well said. You're speaking to the choir here, Coach, about all those hidden yards. You're right. It doesn't show up in the yardstick, but it gives you a short field to play on. Coach, you played an awesome schedule pre-district. I mean, you beat Holy Cross earlier. Then you defeated Hornville. You lost a tough game against Jesuit without your quarterback.
Right.
A lot of people didn't know that. So, I mean, then this week you play South Lafourche. You start in district play. Talk a little bit about your schedule.
Coach Frank, I didn't know what to expect coming into this, but when I was calling around to try to make a schedule, it was pretty tough. It was tough to find people, and it came down to 1 or 2 people for each of those 3 weeks, and that those were our options. And very honestly, last year we had a lot of running time football games, and I really don't know if that prepared us for the playoffs. And so I knew the schedule was going to help us. I just didn't know how we were going to come out of it, And unfortunately, we had some injuries early. We had some illness early, and we really weren't full speed against Jesuit, and we definitely weren't full speed against Hornville. But had a lot of kids that really picked up the slack. Ben Guidry, who's normally a slot back for us, filled in at quarterback against Jesuit and filled in at quarterback against Hornville. Did a really great job. But we really were thin there. Our starter, Grant Barbera, we really think is a good player. He makes a lot of good decisions, and he really can sling the football around. So it was a blow to lose him. We lost an explosive wide receiver in Chase Nakan, who we really thought was going to be special this year, to a high ankle sprain. So we haven't had him back. And then we lost our fullback against Jesuit as well. So he was out against Hornville. So been a lot of pieces that we've been moving around trying to fit. And so very honestly, Coach, I finished in 2-1 against those 3 first opponents was, it was welcome. Because it gave us some power points, and it also gave us some confidence that we can go play with the big boys. So
I think that's
really
what
the schedule was,
I think that's great, Coach, that they top load your schedule like that, because you never know what your district has. Some people know exactly that the tough opponents in the district. Others know you're right. You don't like those running time games. The fans don't even like those running time games.
No, not at all.
You certainly can evaluate your team as coaches. The way it looks on paper, it looks like you might be a team that hopefully can get in the Superdome. My question, Coach, has E.D. White ever played in the Superdome?
Yeah, we played one time in 1981. It was the first time it was
Preston?
held. Yeah,
Okay.
with Preston against John Curtis. We lost 21-17 to Curtis back in 81, which was the first years that the championships were held in the Superdome.
Wow.
And then, a couple years ago, it wasn't in the Superdome. We played in the state finals against Duhe at UL Lafayette and lost 14-7 that night. So hopefully we can get back to it. The division's always tough. We lost some people this year, and we gained some other people. So the division's going to be as tough as any division around.
It is, but I think, it got you earmarked, Coach, for getting there. I think you look like you have the football team and the pedigree and the whole thing to go with it. Coach, players love to play for you. Ethan Wagensback was a family member of mine. Sunday, my niece is, and he enjoyed playing for you, when he was there. And Coach, you played, you coached with Preston. You've done that leadership for a long, long time. And he's a legend in that own area. And something like that. If you ever get him away, he's promised me a fishing trip. I never did take me fishing. I think he kept all his pickles.
You got to take him up on that now.
Coach, tell me a little bit about that. You mentioned your kicker. Do you have any other college prospects on your football team? Because you're not loaded with D1 guys. I want people to know that. You just have some hard-nosed, good football players that love the game.
Yeah, you're right. Tommy Bauer, our left tackle, is about 6'4", 270. He can go play somewhere, and he's got some offers, Nickel, Southeastern, those places. And then our center, Zach Guin, is going to go play some D2 ball probably. But other than that, not a ton. But look, Coach, never in the history of my career have we had this many similar kids. We got a lot of kids that are 5'10", 5'11", 180, 185, run pretty well. And so what we just do is we take those kids that can play, and then we piece them together, especially defensively. So you'll see those same types of kids maybe playing linebacker. They may be playing free safety. Some of them may be playing defensive end, but we want to get kids that really can run on defense. And we'll kind of, we'll not worry about the size so much as long as they can run to the football. So that's what we really try to do defensively. And we really have an abundance of those kids. This year, our offensive line is really senior heavy. 4 of the 5 are seniors. They all played last year, all have some experience. And so we rely on those guys a bunch. So we've got some talent there. But, everybody else, our slots, our receivers, our running backs, very similar kids, tough, hard-nosed, but run pretty well and move on the football field.
Just true E.D. White kids, just true. That you developed. And I'm very familiar with those kind of kids, Coach, that you developed yourself. You've done a great job of developing a culture there, Coach. Now it's a championship culture in terms of that. But also, Coach, what goes into making a championship team is leadership. Apparently, you have that. Yeah,
Coach, it's different nowadays. From 29 years ago, the kids are different. You got to do different things. And if you're going to set a culture in your program, you have to do it differently. So we address a lot of things, and we speak very openly about a lot of things that are going to set the culture for our football team. But you can talk about culture a lot and you can say all the words you want, but it's really what you do with it. So what we do from day to day, on the practice field, what we do in the classroom, what we do in the halls, how we treat people is really important to me. We've really developed a system for addressing those things from social media to mental health to how we treat girls. There's nothing that we don't talk about because I think all of those things are important. And I want to know that a kid on Friday night, I want to be able to trust him. And if I can trust him in those aspects, then I could probably trust him on the field. So that stuff is really important to me. And it probably wasn't important or as important the first go around. So that stuff makes a difference to me. It kind of sets the tone for what we expect. And, these days, Coach, half of the battle is defeating the distractions, I call it. The world of social media, the world of instant gratification, the world of specializing in sports, those kinds of things are distractions to programs. And we really try to defeat those things and nip them in the bud. And fortunately, we have, probably close to 185 kids involved in football from 8th grade through seniors. Wow. And that's tremendous for a 4A football team. So I think we're maybe doing something right, that kids want to be part of the program, but every kid in our program knows that there's some expectation for being a part of that program. And so those things have really worked out this second time.
Coach, that well said. Coach, that's tremendous. You know, Coach, the culture that you've created there, you created that championship culture. But you know, more importantly, what I admire about your program, you've done it the right way.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that we did it the right way. That you got kids from Thibodeau High School in your attended zone.
Right.
You didn't go out and have to sell your soul to get kids in school. And I think you did it. You went it the right way within the framework of the rules, and that's what we admire about your program, and everybody does when they talk about ED White. One, you draw well. You've done tremendously. You got tremendous support. You always have. You got great facilities there. Tremendous administration. Your principal, happen to know your principal quite well. And I mean, she's just a wonderful woman, very cerebral. I remember her standing on the floor in the LSSAA and making comments, and boy, I was taken back to the boys. This woman is sharp. I said, I couldn't marry that woman because she's too smart for me. but Coach, listen, thank you so much for coming on and taking your time. I'm sorry about the little glitch that we had earlier.
No problem at all.
Stuff on, but and good luck on Friday. I mean, I know that you got some other games, some tough ones in front of you, but it looks like the district is pretty competitive. I know you got down to the road, you got Lutcher and you got ED White. That should be some fun games to watch. Plus, but you can't relax. You never know. You never know what's happen.
No, we won't, Coach. And I just want to say before we go, Coach, when we played you guys, when you were coaching at St. Charles, I was very envious of your program. And that was the model program for us because your kids just were completely bought in. And I wanted our kids to be that. And without personally telling you that, I want to tell you that now, that you guys played the game the right way, set the tone, and just played extremely hard. And if there's one program that I was going to model ours after, it was going to be yours. So I'm very grateful for having coached against you and seeing you coach the game the right way as well.
Thank you, Coach. I really appreciate that. And listen, good luck to you and your family. By the way, Coach, your family, tell us a little bit about your family. You said you had a daughter that played volleyball.
Yep. I've got a 26-year-old son who's working at a bank here in Houma. I got a daughter who just graduated from LSU. That was my volleyball player. She just got accepted into PA school at LSU New Orleans. Oh, wow. And then I got my youngest is majoring in education here at Nichols. So she's the only one preventing me and the wife from being empty nesters. But we love her being here. My wife, Stacy, has been extremely supportive of me doing this for 29 years. And I don't know how much I have left, Coach, but I've enjoyed my ride.
No, great. That's great. Like, they'll come back home, Coach. Don't worry about that.
No doubt.
Especially to come back home to get that jambalaya.
Absolutely.
Coach, thank you so much, and good luck the rest of the way. I'm sure I'll be seeing you pretty soon in that big house.
Yes, indeed. Keep in touch, man. Anything y'all need, let me know.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, man.
We would like to thank Gulf Coastal Sponsors for being a sponsor of the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Based out of Gramercy, Louisiana, LSR produces Southern Cane pure cane sugar, which is only grown, refined, and packaged in Louisiana. LSR utilizes the latest innovations in technology, as well as ensuring the growth and stability of Louisiana's sugarcane farmers by integrating more than 800 growers in the industry's economic structure. Southern Cane is available in your local Associated Grocers and Rouse's supermarkets.
Since 1972, Riverlands Insurance Services has been dedicated to securing the best insurance products and services available to protect you, your family, your assets, and your business. Our goal has been to establish a strong relationship and partnership between you, the insurance company, and our agency, creating a circle of success that prepares for disasters before they actually happen.
We would like to thank Riverlands Insurance for sponsoring the Let's Be Frank video podcast.
Welcome back to the Let's Be Frank video podcast. I'm Jason Duhe. Alongside me is Hall of Fame head coach Frank Monaca. As we move on to the Let's Be Frank segment tonight, Coach, you are going to discuss, is football too dangerous for kids? So, Coach, what are your thoughts on this topic?
I'm telling you guys that, first of all, football is not too dangerous. Absolutely not. You know, if anyone's ever been to a Little League game, especially like 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds, it is like a foam pillow fight. I mean, you don't see big hits in it and stuff like that. You know, we all talk about the benefits of just not anything else, just the training itself and kids just being part of a team. I think it's very, very important. I don't understand because our society now as a whole has gotten softer. And no, it's not the kids that have gotten soft, it's the parents. And I mean, you tell parents, well, they're telling kids it's too hot outside, it's too cold outside. Something like you very seldom see parents say, go outside and play, go in the yard, do something. You need to participate in the team. Or you don't see parents pushing them in that way, and take away that video game, whatever they call those games that they're playing. Take that away from them. Limit those times to do that. I don't think it hurts them at all to be playing, sports at all at that age, because they're well equipped with it. There's a big helmet on them. They have shoulder pads. They have thigh pads. They even have a butt pad and hip pads. And I mean, you see more injuries on four-wheelers. You see on bicycles. You see kids falling off of trampolines and stuff like that. All sports have some requirement there of safety. But on the flip side of it, why not let them play in the yard? You see kids tackle one another in the yard without any pads on. Does anyone get hurt there? Heck no. I just think part of it. I think, let them be part of a structured situation. I think it's important. Not that the winning, it's not about a trophy, it's not about a plaque on a wall. It's all about the structure. It's all about making them accountable to be at practice. The confidence that it can give them, just the confidence that they can play a contact sport. I remember one kid, he came out for football, his 9th grade year. He said, Coach, I don't know if I want to play, and whatever. We dressed him out in gear. In the very first practice, some guy blocked him and knocked him on the ground. You know what? He got up and bounced up. He looked at me, he said, that didn't hurt at all. Well, he thought for some reason that all his bones would be broken. Of the 206 bones, he thought that 205 of them would be broken if he ever hit the ground. I think that, what people get away from is the fact that they think that football is so physical, because sometimes TV will take that and embellish those big hits and stuff like that. But how many games do you watch and you see big hits? I watched LSU and Tulane over the weekend. I didn't see one big hit in that ball game. In the Georgia-Alabama ball game, that was no tougher ball game around in college football ever. But you didn't see people get knocked out in that ball game and stuff like that. I mean, so the bottom line, what I'm saying is that it's all about our society has gotten completely softer, and the word about more injuries. But remember, you can get injuries from anything. But what can be better for a kid than just to have him being a part of an environment, of a culture environment, of being a good teammate, and being accountable for practice time, being accountable for being in the right spot when he runs a play. What is it? Being accountable to a coach. Also, the condition and everything taken care of with it. Look, that'll be an experience. It's all about the experience, and he'll go on for the rest of his life. Hey, I played ball with such and such. He and I played Little League ball together. Now, if they get to high school to decide to go a different direction, that's different. But the question is it safe for youth to play football? Absolutely not. I mean, it is safe because they can get themselves involved with other things, get themselves hurt, whether it's automobile, whatever. We cannot put our kids in a bubble, and they got to get used to that. They have to get used to that. It makes them a better man. It makes them a better man. So I think every kid should experience the sport of football for reasons of that I just stated, from the accountability, from the structure, from the training, and the physical activity that they'll get. And more importantly, it teaches them the discipline of maybe telling his coach, yes, sir, no, sir, but gives them discipline.
Coach, to that point, I'm not sure if you recall, I believe it was my junior season. I think we had more injuries on that team. It was either my junior or sophomore year. We had more injuries due to four-wheeler accidents, dirt bike accidents, or basketball injuries during PE, to the point where you had a conference and you forbade everybody from participating in basketball during PE. I don't know if you recall that season, but there was like a lot of guys who were out due to that. So again,
That's a good point.
Yeah, you can get injured anywhere in any way.
We have
And,
my philosophy there, Jason, was that a big lineman on a basketball court coming down on the side of somebody's ankle, he turned his ankle, and he wasn't used to it. And when I was at Lutcher High School, the week of Thanksgiving was Building Bonfires Week. Okay, I lost 4 kids on the levee, after practice building bonfire. So after that year, bonfire building was off limits until the season was over with.
Yeah, I can believe it. Like I said, I've seen it happen before on your teams. So, Coach, on our next segment, we got Blitz the Ball, Coach, where you're going to tell us what is a pick play in football.
Okay, a pick play is a play that's actually, in the term of a lot of sophisticated coaches, they call it a rub play. A rub means that you're going to try to bump the defender. It's basically used against, and it's used most of the time it's on goal line, but it can be used in open field also. But most of the time what it does, a player runs through a zone, and this zone is hopefully try to attack the upfield shoulder of a guy to make him run around, or what they call run the hump, so that another receiver can get open. So it's illegal if you do it right, but yet it's not legal. Is it wrong to do it? Well, a lot of people, you saw the Saints game playing against who was the Philadelphia. And now it was not a pick play, but because of the crossing routes that the man coverage, 3 Saints players collided with one another, left the tight end completely wide open. That was not exactly a designed pick play, but man coverage can cause that. So what you want to do, you want to bunch your setup, and I have a little diagram I want to show you. So what you do, you bunch the setup. So it's called a pick play right here. And what happens is that the 2 outside receivers will go inside and rub the defender. And these 2 guys rub the defender that has this back right here. And this back shoots right to the flat, and the quarterback throws the ball to him. In fact, this exact play is what LSU beat with Alabama when they went for 2. It's called a pick play or rub play or whatever you want to call it. Now, you can do it a lot of different ways. You can do this. LSU did it with motion. You brought the guy from the other side. There's a lot of ways that you can do it with a tight end. There are a lot of people that you can do it with. But the whole day, it's like the term comes from a basketball term, the old pick and roll, where you shield a basketball defender and the other guy rolls off of that and you feed him the basketball. That's called the old pick and roll. Well, this play here down the field. Now, you do not get this confused with it, because this is the exact same diagram I can show you. If I'm throwing a bubble screen, for instance, okay, let me turn this the right way. If I'm throwing a bubble screen, these guys can block down the field. That's legal if the ball is thrown behind the line of scrimmage. That is legal except in the NFL. So what I'm saying to you, do not get that confused. Those two are totally different things between a pick play and a bubble screen. And you see that everybody has those now. But the receivers can block down the field if the ball is thrown behind the line of scrimmage. Same thing with a screen pass. But this particular play is when the ball is thrown up the field, and sometimes these guys can run what they call a wheel route out of the backfield, which means you'll be up the sideline. So basically, are pick plays legal? No, they're not, but people call them rub. If you do it right, and you run across field, now sometimes it's just accidental. It becomes an accidental pick. But if you do it correctly, and everybody has that in their repertoire, just to make the defender take one extra step a little bit deeper to get that guy just a little bit more leverage on the defender.
Coach, it's historically, if you call it a pick play, you're more of a defensive guy. If you call it a rub route, you're more of an offensive guy. What's your inclination to call it?
Well, what happens, I mean, if you're going to play man defense, you better get ready for it, because they're going to give it to you. And a lot of that takes place anyway, because if you have crossing routes, especially, that's why you see a lot of teams in bunch formation. Bunch means you see those receivers like I just showed you, they'll be tied together with 3 yards from one another. So when they release, that's what they call priority release. One receiver has a priority release off the other and rubs off the other guy's butt to make the defender actually have to climb the ladder, so to speak, to find you. So it becomes like a menagerie there, like a maze, and all of a sudden who pops out of there. So if you can play man cover, now some people switch it, and some people just say, when I see that, I'm automatically in zone.
All right, as we go ahead and move on to at the water cooler, Coach, you want to kind of take a look at some of the Heisman candidates that we have currently in the college football world.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I really thought that Ewer's kid from Texas was going to be probably the Heisman favorite going, and he still might be. I mean, he's been on the shelf for the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if he's going to continue to play next week and the week after that. But I thought he was. But I think after that game Milroe had the other night against Georgia on national television with a phenomenal game, one of the best ball games ever in college football. It could be a rematch down the road. I think that Milroe probably right now would be the candidate that the people would like right now. I like the guy Ward, quarterback from Miami. I think he's excellent. He's building up a lot of stats and a team that could be there at the end. Sanders from Colorado. I mean, how can you not discredit him throwing 5 touchdown passes? And he's got his teammate Hunter is also a guy who could be in the mix. As I say, Amaliva from Tennessee. I don't know if he's healthy. He's the prospect. Jason Dart from Ole Miss after the loss the other day didn't look really impressive, so that hurt his chances of being considered. Hunter, as I said, from Colorado as the prospect, but look for Milroe and Carson Beck from Georgia. Even though Carson Beck, I think, was the favorite at the beginning of the year, he did not have a good start. He finished the ball game well. His last touchdown, his last interception was something that just a little bit more, one more yard. He had a touchdown instead of a pick or whatever. But it looked like Milroe is going to be probably odds on favorite, especially if he continues to run like he does. He's a lot like Jalen Daniels when it comes to that.
All right, Coach, and let's go ahead and take a look at our final segment, which is the lock of the week. Who do you like in this week's matchups, Coach?
Coach, I like Clemson because I think that, I like to look in the future about possible. I'm going to look at the top 25 that just came out again every year, every week it revolves. Alabama's taking that spot, and I'd look for Alabama to have a letdown, but I'm not going to bet that direction because the opponent is just not. I don't think that the opponent is good enough to test them. But I am going to look at Clemson because I think Clemson is getting better, and they're playing Florida State. It looked like Florida State's going the other direction.
I like that game so much. I actually had that one picked myself, but I'm pivoting, and it's a rough slate of games to pick from. What I do see is Michigan sitting at +2.5 against Washington, a team that, again, is under a new direction, lost a lot of players. Both teams really lost a lot of players, but Michigan does have to go into Washington to play that game. I think it'll be tough, but I'll take the Wolverines +2.5 on the road in that matchup. And that'll do it for us. So we're going to go ahead and plug our social medias before we go ahead and get out of here. Remember to follow us on Facebook at the Let's Be Frank Video Podcast. Follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok at the LBF Podcast. So, Coach, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
First of all, everybody, please attend the church service of your choice on Sunday. Our guest speaker next week is legendary Coach Pete Jenkins, NFL LSU coach, and been around 1,000 years. So please stay tuned.
All right, that'll do it for us. So we want to once again thank Gabe Gars for filling in for Justin, who's been out of town over the past few weeks. I'll go ahead and say for everybody here, for Frank Monica, I am Jason Duhe. And remember, Leslie Bonton, let the good times roll.